We're at The Real Deal once again. Mecca, NYC, you know the spiel. I don't have to say it every time, but I know how excited that I am. Now, episode number 5 is going to take a little fork in the road because episode 5 is going to talk about 2 different things. How are we actually going to get this building built? Let's talk about that. And then my favorite, how do you secure the bag? We got to get that paper to build. So how are we going to get that money? And what does that look like? So stay tuned. Come on in. Have a seat. So let's talk about the construction side of that fork in the road. We got the job. We've secured a GMP agreement. Now what? General construction is really only one of 2 things. We call it supervision and labor. The general contractor is sort of, conducting a symphony of people below them. But what do you actually have to do? So you're a general contractor, you actually have the project. You have to secure subcontractors. A contractor or GC is not a plumber, is not an electrician, is not a mechanical trade, is not a carpenter. So they have to create a market for that. They have to go out to who's available to build and see, one, if they're available to do it, and if they're credible to do it, and if they have the wherewithal to do it. So there's a language that's spoken between the general contractor and the architect, and that is called an RFI and a submittal. So the architect, as we said before, creates these fantastic drawings. You, the general contractor, are now looking at it. How do you ask a question if something is missing on a drawing? It's called an RFI, which is an acronym for request for information. That's the way in which we communicate back and forth with the engineers, the structural engineers, the subcontractors, and the architects and the general contractor to be able to identify what it is we're actually building. So we're going to create a market in order to bid this building. We're going to solve all those open items that we don't understand, and then we are going to submit. It's called the submittal. You think if the architect says wood floor, that is at the end of the day. No, you have to submit the type of wood floor, how it's going to react, what is it going to do, and go back and forth to resolve that, because as you hear all the time, construction is doubling up in cost, tons of change orders. So it's this communication that's going back and forth that allows you to finally select. And by the way, we haven't even started building yet. All we've done is created a marketplace in order to get cost. But it doesn't stop there. What are the finishes? What's going to be the vibe and the energy of that building or that asset? What are the way in which we, the consumer, are going to touch, feel, and experience that? So there's something called FF&E, fixtures, furnishings, and equipment. That's everything that's actually going to live in that space that isn't people. And that also has to be thought through. And then one of my favorite things that I think is actually changing the way in which we build and develop is what is going to be the technological planning of that building. Imagine a few years ago, we didn't even talk about it. We would say maybe there'll be some speakers and a TV, but technology has changed the way we've experienced these assets, that there's now a whole team that you have to put together in order to figure out what the tech stack will be in the building. Now, once you've wrapped your head around that, once you created the marketplace for those subcontractors, you then buy those trades, and then, and only then, are we ready to actually get started. That's me shoveling, by the way, and put the shovel in the ground to get going. But people ask, how do we secure the bag? What does secure the bag mean? We need money, people. This doesn't come out of thin air. People don't do this philanthropically. We have to get the money. How do you go about getting the money? This is the big business. This is that BlackRock business. This is that masters of the universe. There's degrees in this, there's PhDs in this. What every hustler on the market wants to be around the money. So the easiest way to explain it, this is my easiest way to explain it, is let's say the cost of that project is $100. Everyone says you go to the bank to get the money. But the bank isn't giving you $100 if it costs $100. The bank wants a specific position that's not at so much risk, but they agree that they're willing to give it. They're willing to take anywhere from, it's called loan to cost or loan to value, anywhere from 30% to 65%. And if you remember in 2008 when everything melted down, banks were going up to 80%. Now they've reduced that risk. Why? Because from $0 to $65 is the least amount of risk. And when you think about equity, equity and you think about capital and you think about cost, it's where along that chain of coming up with the $100, right, is risk-adjusted returns. The higher risk, the higher return. And as you know, banks' money was relatively cheap. It's the cheapest cost of capital is that bank, $65. But we need $100. $65 ain't getting it done. So there's a next tranche of capital that's available to you. It's in your private equity, it's in your sovereign wealth funds, it's in your teachers' pension plans, and all of these companies and people that we hear about, and that's called mezzanine and preferred equity. That's that next tranche of capital that's available to you. Much more expensive because it's at a higher risk profile. Now, people will tell me there's a million others. That's not the point. These are the ones, and it's the simplest way in order for us to explain it. So now you've got up to 85, 90 cents of the $100, and those are the ones that are at more risk. But then there's that last piece. That last piece at the highest risk, which should get the highest return, and we call that common equity. GPs, the general partners, the ones who get most of the credibility and advertising and marketing and PR that you see out there, because they are the operators. They are the ones who have to put the deal together, raise that actual money, secure the bag, execute it, take the guarantees, and that's why they get all the credit, and they're supposed to get all the riches. That's the point. Everyone else's return is fixed. Theirs can be infinite. But remember, there's two sides to every coin. And whenever you're at that much risk, you're the first one who can get wiped out. You're the one who's at the most risk possible.